Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the SIBN's first Periscope of the season. Brendan Devine here with you, Matt McKenzie and Matt Hars are the varsity guys on the call tonight. We're inside the Eagles' nest here in Lakewood, and we're going to preview tonight's second matchup of a possible three here between St. Ignatius and St. Edward. The Wildcats enter at 12-4, while the Eagles are 13-4. And Matt, how about this? The Wildcats, they have a chance to knock off St. Edward for the first time in 4 straight times since 2001. Wildcats really have a lot of momentum going in right now, coming off a big win over Cleveland Heights last Saturday. So what do you think the Wildcats are looking to do tonight?
Well, obviously looking to do tonight is sweep the season series with the Eagles, and they certainly have a high chance of doing that tonight. It's going to be a tough atmosphere on the road for the Wildcats, and if you look at how they did the first time around, Matt Davitt a season high 36 points, and if they control that inside game, if they can shut down Kelvin Calhoun, they should have a good chance of victory tonight, especially if Davitt and Yering can keep up their performances like they have all season long.
So send us your questions if you have any about tonight's game. Obviously, the guy to watch out for tonight is Tommy Schmock for the Eagles. Tommy Schmock, their red light three-point shooter. Matt, Tommy Schmock was effective in the first win for the Wildcats. He had 12 points, and other teams have been able to hold him to 4 or 6 points in, while St. Edward were still able to win. What do you think the Wildcats are going to have to try and do tonight to take down and eliminate Tommy Schmock out of St. Edward's offense?
Well, I think the Wildcats should try putting Yerian on Schmock again like they did at the beginning of the last game. See if Yerian can control him a little bit better. But overall, I think the Wildcats did all right on Tommy Schmock. But if it comes down to it again, I think he's the one you're going to have to foul at the end of the game if we get down to a free throw and foul game. But again, I just think just stay in front of him. Don't let him drive, because that's where he did most of the damage.
And Matt, you mentioned it to me before this, that in years past, we really knew who the better team was. Last year, we knew who the better team was, and it was the Wildcats. And before that, it was always St. Edward. This year, it's kind of even. It's the Wildcats and Eagles very closely matched up. When you look at their guards, Tommy Schmock, we have Michael Spear and Colin Goodfellow. Tonight, do you expect this to be possibly another overtime, thrilling game, and this time at Lakewood?
I'm definitely getting that sense, Brendan, because if you look at these two teams, like you mentioned, how even they are, with the Wildcats and the Eagles last year, the second matchup, both teams were kind of reserved in how they played, and they didn't really want to reveal anything, but it felt like after that first matchup, so much was left out on the table that you can't really avoid that the second time around, and it seems like these two teams are destined for a district finals matchup, so regardless of who wins tonight, it's almost as if when you get to the playoffs, it's a fresh slate, because it's literally a toss-up every single time these two teams meet, and especially in a season like this where the Wildcats and Eagles are so even strength-wise, despite their differences when compiling the rosters.
Again, send us your questions about tonight's game if you have any. And tonight, St. Edward, they are entering at 13-4, coming off a win this past week against Shaw. After the loss to St. Ignatius, they went 4-1 with wins over Lorraine and Villangela St. Joseph. Matt, the Eagles right now, do you think this game means a lot to the rest of their season going into the playoffs? Because you don't want to go into the playoffs having lost to St. Ignatius twice.
Right, yeah, I think this game actually does mean a lot to both teams, actually. Obviously, big rivalry games, so you never want to lose to your rival, and you especially don't want to be swept by your rival. But I'm a senior, and I've never seen the Wildcats win here since I've been attending Ignatius, so I'd really love to see them get a win on the road here at St. Edwards to head into the playoffs on a high note.
You mentioned not being able to win here in Lakewood. This atmosphere is always a tough one, and take a look at here. You have the student session behind the basket. It's never easy. It gets hot. And we saw last year, players started to cramp up. They got dehydrated, and it's never an easy place to win here. Sullivan Gym kind of feels like it's neutral, but not all the time. And really, Matt, being able to win on the opponent's court, especially here in Lakewood, what do you think Wildcats' their mindset has to be playing in this hostile environment?
Well, the mindset is to just try and continue what they've done this season against the Eagles, and it's obviously a very tough atmosphere. We saw that at Sullivan Gym, and it got to some of the Eagles players as well. But if you look at the Wildcats going on the road at St. Edward, it's always a tough atmosphere, like Mr. McCormick mentioned earlier in the week. Shooting into that student section, that's never a good backdrop when you're trying to knock down your shots. But you have to just focus and treat it like any other game. That's much easier said than done, but you have to treat it like another game, and although it's a rivalry game, you're going to have your blood flowing and the emotions going. You're just going to have to lock in and play like you normally do and treat it like it's just one of the other 25 games this year.
And Matt, one thing I think that is a key to the Wildcats' win tonight is Colin Goodfellow, how he's going to be able to shoot the three ball. Against Cleveland Heights, he came out of nowhere in the beginning of the game and really shot the ball efficiently and had a career-high 22 points. It's Colin Goodfellow, he's going to have another game of his life.
Definitely. I mean, Colin Goodfellow, that was his best performance of the year. 22 points. He was red-hot shooting and unconscious from three-point range. And if Colin Goodfellow can continue that success in this one, that just adds a whole nother dynamic to this Wildcats team and certainly ensures a better shot at victory. So if Colin Goodfellow can get some open looks, he did the first time around against the Eagles. He had some corner threes that he was able to knock down. If he can do that for a second time, that certainly adds another level to the Wildcats team.
Obviously, we have, for the Eagles, they have Kevin Calhoun and Matt. In the first game, Calhoun was efficient, being able to go up against Yarian and Davitt. What defense underneath Yarian and Davitt, what's the game plan for those guys?
Well, actually, I didn't expect Calhoun to be as efficient as he was, and also he showed a lot of mobility and some nice post moves down there, but I'd say that Yarian and Davitt, they just got to trust their instincts. I mean, they've been able to defend the best bigs they've faced this year, so maybe they probably watched a little bit of that film after that game and saw what Calhoun liked to do, so they should have made their adjustments, and I'm confident our guys can keep them under control this game.
Now, the second half, last game really was the second half where both teams just went back and forth. And in the fourth quarter, St. Edward was able to stretch their lead 2-7. Wasn't enough as Matt Davitt was able to hit big threes to get the Wildcats back in it. St. Edward, their Achilles heel has kind of been unable to come out of halftime and have a strong second half. Matt, in the Lorraine game and their win over Lorraine, that was their game plan, having a strong second half. What do you think the second half coming out of halftime for the Wildcats? What are they going to have to do?
Well, it depends obviously on how the first half goes, but if you look at the second half, it's tough because when you have momentum on your side, it's hard when you go into the locker room and you just have to sit there and obviously if you're the players, you want to get right back out there on the court and keep that success going. But for the second half, it's just trying to stay to your principles that you kept during the first half, work the ball inside, get some nice ball moving, go in the offense. And on defense, if the Wildcats do play a little bit more of that 2-3 zone tonight, that was pretty successful against Cleveland Heights, but the Tigers were a team that struggled against the zone defense. So you have to play tough man-to-man defense. You got to lock down, like you mentioned, Tommy Schmock, Kelvin Calhoun. Eagles have several guys, a lot of them veterans, but a lot of them are younger freshmen, sophomores, but they're just as damaging on the offensive end, so you always have to keep your guy in check.
That's another thing, the freshmen on this Eagles team, Montori Foster and Grant Huffman. Matt, this is their second time around going up against St. Ignatius, and Coach Flannery has said that they rise to the occasion, they love the big games. But the Wildcats were kind of able to take them out of the equation in our 90-80 win in overtime. Defensively, what do we have to do against those freshmen?
You definitely have to keep an eye on them, but I would say Grant Huffman actually had a pretty good game as a freshman at Sullivan Gym last time around. He didn't score too much, but I'd say he handled his nerves well and had a pretty good game. But I'd say if you're the Wildcats, just make sure you keep an eye on him, because obviously you're already keeping an eye on Tommy Schmock, Jack Sullivan from outside, and you got to worry about Calhoun on the inside. But, just pay attention to where they're at on the court, because they can hurt you.
All right, guys. Well, this is obviously a huge game tonight for the Wildcats, and we've mentioned it. It's the second of a possible 3 matchups between these two teams in the district championship game. It very well could be the Wildcats and Eagles again. When you look at the district, which the seedings will come out on Sunday, this game will obviously determine who's the number 1 seed, the Wildcats or the Eagles. This game, obviously, Matt, do you think it means anything towards the district championship?
I think it means a lot towards the district championship, and I think the first matchup will play a role as well. But as you get deeper and deeper into the season, teams get more developed, they get more experience, so they start to look like who they really are, and they resemble what type of team they will be come postseason time. So I think this second matchup might be even more important for the postseason rankings than the first one. And if the Wildcats do pull out the victory tonight, that'll be a telling tale, and certainly they'll get the #1 seed, sweeping the season series with the Eagles. But if St. Edward wins at home, you have to factor in that it was a home victory, but it'll be difficult to decide who will be that 1 seed. I'm glad I'm not the person deciding that, but it should be interesting to see who the coaches end up deciding should reign atop the Strongsville district.
Well, that will do it for things here on the SIBN's Periscope. Real quick, guys, your keys to the Wildcats win tonight.
I'd have to say my key is to get Matt Davitt going inside. Obviously, had a pretty good game the first time around, banked in that great 3 to send us to overtime. But I'd like to see him and Yarian get a nice post game going inside tonight against Calhoun.
And Matt, your key to the second half, to the second game.
My key to the matchup tonight is get Matt Davitt a little bit more involved. Last game against Cleveland Heights, he didn't score as much as he normally does, but definitely against the Eagles, they'll have their eyes set on him, so the Wildcats will have to incorporate some new ways to get him involved because the Eagles will try and lock him down defensively. And then have an answer for Kelvin Calhoun, because he had 20 points a few games ago and he had 16 against the Wildcats, and he's got the ability to dominate the post. And for a guy like Calhoun, you can't completely quiet him, but if you can find an answer for him and if you can shut him down a little bit more, that makes the Wildcats' chances a lot better inside, getting some better looks. So it's certainly finding an answer for Kelvin Calhoun as well on the defensive side.
And for me, it's how the Wildcats respond in the second half defensively. Can they contain the Eagles and have a strong second half to push away and move away from the Eagles in their lead, hopefully a lead in the second half. So that does his things here on the SIBN Periscope. For the varsity action, tune in at 7:20 around that time, at any time after junior varsity game ends. Junior varsity coverage begins at 5:50 with a tip-off at 6 o'clock on the SIBN. Guys, big game tonight, and we're looking forward to it. We'll have you covered on the SIBN all night long. So from Matt McKenzie, Matt Harsar, and Brendan Devini, we're signing off here on Periscope.
Go Cats.
Thanks, everybody.